first met Steve this one Saturday. I'd just left Sheena in town clothes shopping. Well, I'm practically buying the whole of TK Maxx. I've got to have this one, she says, holding up yet another top. What do you think, Tash? So I just nod. I'm getting pretty pissed off. I'm all spent up and I've only just managed to buy a pair of jeans and she's still going. God knows where she gets the money from. I'm getting off, I tell her. But she's barely listening, pouting in front of the mirror and matching up tops to trousers. I catch the 49 from outside the library, but I'm 20p short of the bus fare home, so I'm fumbling around in my pockets, pulling out old receipts and crap, and there's this massive queue behind me. I can hear some woman commenting and tutting to her mate, and the bus driver's getting pretty pissed off as well. Look, love, he says, if you haven't got the fare, you'll have to get off. Fine, I mutter. And just as I'm about to turn to get off the bus, I hear this voice behind me. I've got the extra 20p. And this guy, I've never met him before, has made his way to the front of the queue and is handing over the money. Thanks, I mutter. I'm well embarrassed, but grateful that I don't have to do the walk of shame past the rest of the queue. No problem, he says, and he smiles at me. It's a pretty sexy smile as well. Anyway, so I get on the bus and I sit downstairs, and this 20p guy sits behind me. The bus sets off. I know I should probably say something. I don't want him to think I'm ungrateful, but I'm just too embarrassed, so I'll get out my phone and pretend that I'm texting. Sheena's messaged me. It's a picture of her latest purchase, and I'm about to reply, but typically my phone freezes. So I stick in some headphones and manage to listen to some music. I'm turned to face towards the window, and I can see the 20p guy's reflection. He's pretty well dressed. A little bit older than me, maybe early 20s, it's difficult to tell. And then he looks at the window and I think he's clocked that I'm looking at him. God, I'm so embarrassed. So I get on my phone, pretend that I'm texting. The bus stops to let on more people. So reluctantly I move my bag. Great. I knew I should have sat upstairs. Now I'm going to get some randomer sitting next to me. And then suddenly, the 20p guy sits there. You don't mind if I sit here, he says. It's getting a bit busy. God, he's talking to me. It's fine, I mutter, wishing I could think of something cool to say. I know he probably thinks I'm some silly little girl, but for some reason I really want to impress him. It's dead silent between us, and I'm trying to sit there looking all cool. Not like a 15-year-old schoolgirl. What are you listening to, he says. God, he is dead good looking and dead confident. Sex witch, I blurt out. I'm not really. I'm listening to Sam Smith, but I don't want him to know that. Ah, he says, isn't that Natasha Khan? Used to be in Back for Lashes. Shit, he clearly knows his music. Yeah, I mutter, it's cool. And he smiles at me, and I think that he's sussed me out, but I owe you 20p, I say, quickly trying to change the topic. I think, he says, that I can stretch 20p, Tash, I tell him. I'm Steve, he says. And then he's standing up, pressing the button to get off the bus. Hey Tash, he says before he gets off, have you got Facebook? And there's just enough time for me to give him my surname so that he can add me on Facebook, and he gets off the bus. Just as we're pulling out, I look outside of the window and I can see him smiling at me. So I smile back. I'm probably blushing as well. God, I can't wait to tell Sheena. She's going to be so jealous. I've been going through a bit of a rough patch with Dad recently. Ever since Mum left, we keep going through these patches. It's usually when his most recent girlfriend dumps him. This time it was Julia. I think she thought she was a bit too good for him, with a high-powered city job and him working nights at the factory. I don't know what they actually saw in each other anyway. Anyway, usually, as I'm getting in from school, he's just about to leave for work, and he barely even notices me, other than to moan about money. The eating bills won't pay for himself, he says. Stop leaving your iPad on charge. God, he's so boring. No wonder I'm on my iPad all the time. Then one day, he says, Tash, we're going to have to move out. Rent's too expensive. He says that we're going to have to move in with my uncle. Miles away. Great, I tell him. So I'm going to have to move school and leave Sheena behind just because you've got a shit job and you can't pay rent. And then it all kicks off and we get in this massive argument. And as usual, he storms off and slams the door in my face. I'll message Steve. He'll understand. Me and Steve have been messaging for a couple of weeks now. Ever since the day that I met him on the bus. A part of me thought that he wouldn't even contact me, but he did the day after, and we've been talking ever since. Sheena's been a bit funny with me. She says that we haven't been hanging out as much. I suppose I have been messaging Steve on most nights, but I'm not going to let on to her. Not yet. Steve reckons I should cool it down with her a bit anyway. Reckons she's been a bit possessive. You can tell he's older when he says things like that. He's right though. Sheena is being a nag. Anyway, so I messaged Steve about the whole moving thing and he's been dead supportive. He reckons Dad's just being an arse because Julie's just broken up with him and he's taking it out on me. He says to me, "You've got to stand your ground. Tell him that you refuse to move sexy." He often calls me sexy when we chat online. I don't know if he actually means it or whether he's just saying it, but it always makes me blush. So, me and Steve have been messaging for 2 weeks now, and he says that we should Snapchat. God, I can't Snapchat looking like this. I look a right state. So I'll go and have a shower, do my makeup, the works. And then I remember him mentioning something about what he likes to see a girl dressed in. So I'll get changed as well. And finally, I send him a Snapchat. He sends me one back. He's pulling a stupid face. And then he sends another. He knows that I've just spent hours getting ready. "You don't have to do that for me, babe," he says. "You'd look hot in a bin liner. Has your iPad got a camera?" And then we start doing the face-to-face chat thing, using my iPad, which is loads better. You know, just seeing his face when we talk. And then one day, I'm coming out of school on my own. I've followed Steve's advice. I'm not really hanging out with Sheena anymore. And all of a sudden, Steve's right there beside me. "Steve, I can't believe he's actually here in person. What are you doing here?" "Well, you seemed a bit stressed about your dad last night," he says. "So I thought I'd come and surprise you." "But how do you even know I go to this school?" I ask him. "'Cause you told me," he says. "By the way," he says, "you look well hot in a school uniform." He's just being playful. So I pretend to give him a slap and we start walking down the road. And then he puts his arm around me. God, I feel amazing. We take a detour to the park and no one's around. And we sit side by side on the swings. And then he reaches into the pocket of his jacket and he pulls out this gift, all neatly wrapped and everything. "For me?" I ask him. "Open it," he says. So I gently unwrap the wrapping paper and inside is this dead expensive looking underwear. It's red, the kind you see on skinny models in those catalogues. I can't believe it. I love it. "Look underneath," says Steve. So I pick up the underwear and underneath is a brand new iPhone. I'm completely speechless. "Do you like it?" he says. Yeah, but you know that I've already got a phone," I tell him. "I know, babe," he says, "but that phone's crap and only I've got the number to this, so I'll always be able to get a hold of you." I don't know what to say to him. "Phones are good for 2 things," he says. "Talking and taking pictures." And then he nods at the underwear. "Besides," he says, "we need to make sure that I've picked the right colour." And then we kiss. Dad's proper run one. He even starts slagging off the clothes that I'm wearing, says that I'm dressed like a slut. Arse. It's been well over a month since he first mentioned the move-in with my uncle, but I'm not having it. Steve's right. He'll back down eventually. And then he starts doing that patronising dad thing. "You don't understand. Parents have a responsibility. When you grow up..." He still thinks I'm a little girl. Naive. He's the naive one. He's got no idea what I'm up to when he's at his stupid factory job. I bet that he still thinks I'm a virgin. Not since the other night. I met Steve in town at one of his mates' flats. There was this amazing house party. I met all of his friends. I say friends, some of them were old enough to be his dad. I told Dad that I was staying at Sheena's. Not that he cared anyway. Of course, it's difficult, for me and Steve to meet up on most nights, so a lot of the stuff that we do is on the iPad using the camera. He likes to see me dressed in certain things and doing stuff, He likes that. But so what? We're both adults. Sometimes he asks me to film myself doing stuff to send to him. He says that the videos get him through the long hours of the day when I'm at school. And then one day, I'm online with Steve and we're chatting and stuff, but he doesn't seem his usual self. He's been a bit snappy. Maybe he's had a bad day at work. And then all of a sudden, there's some fat bloke on the camera. I can see him. God, I'm so embarrassed. How long has he been there for? Has he heard everything that me and Steve have been talking about? This is Mike, Steve says. I've got a funny feeling about this. So I tell Steve that I'll message him later. And then he starts getting angry. And he's shouting and he's screaming at me. I've never heard him like that before. And then he apologises for shouting. And he starts asking me to do stuff. Like he always does, but there's no way I'm doing it with this Mike guy there, and I can't understand what he's doing there. Mike's just a friend, Steve says. He just wants to watch, maybe ask you to do a few things, but you're cool with that, aren't you, babe? And he must see the look on my face and the tears in my eyes. I thought he said he'd do anything for me, he says. Prove that you're not a little girl. So I do it. For Steve. Because he's kind and generous and because he treats me like an adult. Because I love him. I thought the stuff with Mike could be a one-off, but there's another party. It's a Thursday night, same place as always, and there's loads of alcohol and even a bit of Black Mamba going round. I'm not used to it, so I'm feeling a bit woozy. The next thing I know, I'm in one of the bedrooms, and there's 2, maybe 3 men. Where's Steve? The men start getting undressed and they're laughing. I've got a boyfriend, I try and tell them. But the room's spinning and they're not much more than a blur to me. And one of them grabs my legs. He's strong. I can feel my underwear being ripped. Get off! They were a present, please! I can hear myself say. But I don't know if I'm actually saying it or whether it's just in my head. I can feel fingers all over my body. And in my hair. And then I must pass out. When I wake up, I'm in the room on my own. And I pick up my clothes, which are on a pile on the floor. I feel sick. It hurts. And I walk towards the living room. People are still there. And they're talking and laughing. The music's loud. I want to go home, I tell Steve. He's sat in the corner. And he doesn't even look at me. And he knows. He knows, but he's done nothing about it. Just a bit longer, he says. For me. I message him the next day. I've told Dad that I'm coming down with something. I don't want to go into school. I can't do this anymore, I say on my message. And a minute later my phone goes off. It's Steve. It's a picture message. It's one of the private ones that I sent him before. There's more like this, the message reads. And videos too. Wonder what Daddy would think. Turns out there's videos of me at that party doing stuff for Steve. Fuck. If Dad found out, he'd go mental. And what if the whole school saw these videos? Because these things, once they go viral, I seriously couldn't cope with that. I know this isn't Steve. I know that it's just his mates. And he's just scared of them, and that's why he's asking me to do this stuff. There's a party next week. I gotta go. Or else they'll do what they threatened. There's more. They want me to bring a friend. I can't. Hi, Sheena, it's Tash. When you get this, could you call me back? I'm sorry I've been a bit of a rubbish friend recently, but let me make it up to you. There's this party next week, and I'd really love it if you could come. It'll be awesome, I promise.